answer a few of those questions. We have closed the flyer, we recruited for 6 weeks. We have 8 vacancies now. We are recruiting for them. We haven't even, I think the exam is tomorrow. It takes about 6 months to hire in this city. So in Anaheim or other cities, it may be different. At this point, that's our experience now. We're not the personnel division, unfortunately. We do try to push them and try to recruit as fast as we can. So
We've had vacancies for longer than 6 months. I've
Right.
been on this board
Absolutely.
for a long time, and we've just been saying, we're short-staffed, we're short-staffed, we're short-staffed. Now it's all coming to a head. Not to blame you, but,
Yeah.
something's gotta change because, we probably had vacancies for a couple of years now.
we've had, yes, and we just received approval to recruit for them a few months ago,
If
actually.
it's 6 months, I'm saying a few years we've had vacancies, not to hammer you, but something's gotta change. Whether it's Fred or William, somebody help us out here because it's getting worse.
Believe me, no one wants to hire people as fast as we do, because we have tons of work. Now, in terms of the watering, staff performs urban forestry work. Watering is just something new that happened this year as a result of the drought. So this is not our normal routine thing. We had sprinklers that we water the grass with, which water the trees. We can't water the medians. As a result, staff now has to water the trees. So we have that operation going on right now. These are the options that we have available. There's obviously some significant costs associated with these. We don't like to use contractors over and above what we already have, obviously. So there's some challenges. We don't have the money to pay for these services right now, so the request is supplemental.
Can you walk us through your timetable for filling the vacancies? Will they be filled in 3 months? You said that you started 3 months ago.
You're talking about the staff vacancies?
There's 8 staff vacancies.
Right.
We're going to have 2 on board in October, 2 in November, 2 in
We-
December.
We have 8 vacancies. We would like to hire them all. It's unpredictable. We don't manage the recruiting process, just to be clear about that. We expedite it by talking to, it's our personnel services agency. So I imagine we probably have staff by February. That's just how it goes, just on experience. So that's, and on the, there's mention that we keep repeating, because of lack of staff power or manpower, we can't do things. I don't think I've mentioned that. I think,
Oh, it's been said
Yeah.
a lot of times.
yeah, someone mentioned
We're
it.
shorthanded, funding, and, there was a prior
Yeah, it's come up.
chair who used to harp on that all the time because it's always, we don't have the funding, we're shorthanded, things like that. It's been
Well-
said a lot, and we need to expedite that and do what we can to push
Absolutely.
that. It really has. It's been kind of our monitor for Santa Ana lately, that we're shorthanded, people are retiring. Well, then we need to recruit. We know it's happening. People put in their retirement papers in due time because they got to get PERS, all that. So it's there. It's just filling out the forms, getting them in, and doing that process. Whether it's 6 months, I've heard it for several years now. We're shorthanded, and we haven't hired anybody new.
That's true.
Tom?
Go ahead. Yeah, I had another point. The thing I'd like to see in the costs is, you mentioned watering, you have sprinklers there, but they're for the grass. I'd really like to get some permanent irrigation in there so we don't have to rely on contractors or staff to run water trucks through. Can we convert some of that? You get a cost in there to convert some of those sprinklers to.
That's what the bottom
That's
one is
option
there.
C.
The two, where it says or and then C, that's actually taking the existing and capping off
Yeah.
and just leaving the sprinklers closest to the trees to water. So
Okay.
that we're not essentially watering the grass, we're watering the trees with the sprinkler system.
Great.
It's just on a separate note, I don't know if you know, so if there's no plan to water the grass Is that just for, because I've noticed in certain parts of the city, it's all just the grass dies, and then it gets worn off, and then it blows away, then you have dirt, there's dirt. Sort of growing, is there any plan to deal with that, or is that a whole different can of worms?
Well, there's median conversions, right?
Yeah, medium, I guess I'm talking about larger park areas,
Park areas?
Yeah. grass areas, park areas, Christmas you're talking about, the resident.
Yeah, you're talking about the parks.
That's,
The parks are not subject to the state mandate or
okay,
restrictions.
that's, that,
So they are subject to the stage 1 or stage 2 water restrictions. I think now it's up to 3 times per week that they can water, or something to that effect. So I don't know their schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of the tree watering sprinkler conversion, this 275,000 cost, this is for medians only,
Correct.
and it's for medians that are not on the schedule to be converted, or is it like how does that play with our work to convert the medians to drought tolerant?
This is all the medians, because it's all the trees that we're concerned about now.
Yeah.
So this is all the medians, not related to anything in the conversion project.
Got it. But some of the
This
medians,
includes all of them. Yeah, I know, some of them are in the conversion project, but this is to get the trees watered now.
so my question then is if a median has been converted and there are trees there, was there sprinklers put in for the trees in those projects, or how is that?
The project, the median conversion project will include watering the trees, but it'll be separate of this because it'll be probably drip system, it'll be a whole different
That's
irrigation type, totally not related to this.
Got it.
This is a quick fix, if you want to call
Yeah.
it, to get water to those trees.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not
Yeah.
spending
Right.
money on quick fixes for trees
Correct.
for projects that are about to have.
Future projects.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So is this a, item 1, is that just an annual cost for, I guess, I'm unclear of the timeline, when does the new watering system come online? Are we going to be doing, how long are we going to be doing the manual watering before we get the new sprinkler system online?
We're manually watering as we speak. We will continue that because we have to get water to the trees. So that will not change at this point. We have to continue doing that until we get another plan in place.
How long does the retrofit take?
Yeah, I guess my point is when does the retrofit occur and we stop doing the water?
Once we enter into a contract, I think it'll at least be 2 months before they from start to end, the retrofit contract.
yeah, I guess I'm a little confused too. So if we said C was a great option to take that one-time hit, $275,000, does that take away part of item number 1? Does that start to eat into some of that cost?
Two totally separate things.
Okay.
Two totally separate. The item 1 is planting 700 new trees and
trees.
watering those new trees. Has nothing to do with the
With the
medians.
median
So
project.
that, they're two separates.
If we by chance would have a great rainy season, obviously you'd cut out the water during
Yes.
that time, but would you then not water in the summer or out of the rain season?
Unless it rains in the summer,
I wish.
we would still have to water.
Exactly. And you're talking medians
Unfortunately.
and parkways, so
Correct.
there's not gonna be any grass in the medians anymore, ever
No.
again.
Yeah, the rain will only help us to where staff won't have to water for several weeks after that rain. But yeah, and unless we get rain all summer, we'll still be,
No.
It's been, the
Watering
drought's
in
been
the
so
summer.
bad, I would assume that you would still have to,
Yeah, it'd be consistent.
yeah, you'd have to keep watering.
yeah.
I would like to extend a little bit. Fred, we're talking about the vacancies that we have in Public Works and how quickly we can fill those so we don't have to hire a contractor. You as really department head have control of that, you know, you're hiring, no?
We wish.
Okay?
Yeah, it has to go through the budgeting and, you know, but personnel and then overall city's workload. Currently, we have 55 vacancies in public works alone, and we haven't been able to hire. I haven't been getting an authorization to hire until just a month ago to start hiring people. So it's, and everybody else in the same predicament, and so the departments with handling all the logistics, like personnel and the finance and all that, and I'll get all these requests from everywhere. So it's slowly kind of moving in, and the market is not that great right now in terms of getting people in. Unemployment is low, if you will. So it takes time to get people. I don't have any prediction how we can hiring people. And all time we just always weigh whether it works better for us to hire full time or hire people from the consultant or staff augmentation. We have to weigh that all the time, and we do that all the time. So it's not going to be fast. That's what I can tell you at this point.
Regarding item 1, the watering the new trees for the first 3 years, can you talk a little bit about why that's $500,000?
Because this is the contract cost.
Sure.
It's additional trees. So, yeah, again, but that's $500 a day for the contractor. And we water them weekly? Yes, that's right. Weekly, the new parkway trees, to get them established, that's our standard operating procedure for the first 3 years. So that's the price to do 700 trees over the next 3 years if they were planted today in the parkway.
So this would.
And this is for
Separate.
700 trees.
Correct, and that's for watering those 700 new trees, because they'd be addition.
So if we have a permanent watering system for the new trees, because I'm looking at the cost to water all of our trees citywide, and option 3 is $360,000 annually. Median tree watering.
For median trees, see, that's separate, remember, that's medians, this is parkways. This is the parkways in front of residential, we're out on like a first street, we're watering for the first 3 years to get the tree established.
So these are
Right.
parkway trees, not
Correct.
median trees.
What I don't understand, I guess I'm still not understanding the cost comparatively though, because the contract staff for the medians once a week is, let's say $100,000 annually.
Yeah,
Oh, I see that it's only 200.
it's, yes, exactly,
Right.
it's less trees.
Right, okay.
But if, as you had mentioned that if these 8 vacancies were filled by February of next year or March or April, then wouldn't that negate some of this $500,000?
It
Less
could.
of a contractual
It could in
obligation.
terms of the operations. We'd have to refocus. At a maximum level, staff would be doing tree work, not watering work. That includes the filling of those positions, so we'd have to reassign staff to this permanent operation essentially.
So whether we hire somebody or not, that's additional cost of having
Yeah,
more
well,
work.
makes sense to
I mean,
go higher.
regardless, you have to assign the people. Remember this is the $885,000 would most probably comes out of general funds.
Right.
If council authorizes it, and the general fund is kind of a limited amount, so they have to weigh
Yes.
the priorities within the city. We have a lot of priorities. Fixing our sidewalks is $40 million, just the cracks and stuff that are not working. People are, it's caused trip and fall. We have huge number of, we have $45 million cost for reducing the number of pedestrian and bicyclists injury and fatalities. The treatments that we We have to have all over the city to slow down traffic, do the things that are necessary in that regard. So all of these things are going to be weighed against this. Where do we want to spend the money? And we don't have any source right now for neither one of those items. The number of people that are getting killed or severely injured as a result of pedestrian bicyclists as a result of accidents actually may exceed the number of homicides within the city. So it's a serious issue. So that's what you'll be considering here. City manager said the recommendation that comes from ETAG in terms of trees. If you agree with this, the city manager would present it to council. The council would weigh in the options and decide whether they want to invest on this or some other places.
I thought when it came to the city trees, we acted as an advisory role to city council.
It doesn't matter. City manager is presenting it to city council, so you can't bypass city manager. Whatever recommendation this council make goes to city managers formulate that to council.
Right.
And the council will make a decision and comes back. That's the
You did say,
process.
you did say it might be possible for the chairperson to also speak before
Oh,
the
yeah.
council because what you're saying is there's a number of competing interests, no matter where you are, in business and cities and government, for where allocations can be spent. And this is all about return on investment and what these trees do for the city, the image, for the cooling effect, for values, property values, and all that. And that's something that has to be presented to have any chance of being a competing interest that is approved. So I think we all understand that, and hopefully, if when we move forward on this, Janelle or whoever from the council or from this committee would be able to go with the city manager and try to present this in a way where this small cost, this $1 million or 1.4 million, is weighed against 40 million and 60 million here, and the return on investment is great for this kind of project.
Yeah. So the ETAG can have a representative or two when it
Okay.
gets presented to council and can kind of speak on why they're recommending this.
Sounds good.
I think as we do report to city council on this issue, we draft a resolution that the chair can present. So that the committee as a whole is represented. Desires the committee is represented.
Yeah, this is also a pedestrian issue. It's not a pedestrian death issue, but this definitely affects how walkable the city is. So that's part of my interest in it.
So I guess what
So-
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, just based on what I've heard so far, my preference would be that we, at least for the medians, go with option C so that we can,
Have a permanent solution.
have a permanent solution, whether this is an issue that's gonna be whether we have drought conditions for a year, 5 years, we'll still be able to use this sprinkler system. And it won't require hiring additional city staff, it won't require paying double for contractors. At the same time, I'm also a little concerned about making any specific recommendations today without Janelle here. Because most of these items have been her items, so I just want to put that up.
Understand. I guess then, just to understand this further, if we were to break this into 1, 2, and 3, reforestation costs, you're saying is going to be $885,000. Added then item C for the medium tree watering, if we recommend doing the one-time cost of $275,000. Added to education is kind of spread apart. What is the educational part cost?
Those were the ones that Janelle asked me to look into for her, and that was the door hangers, doing educational, about the trees, 30,000. And then doing a video, producing a video, city council producing a video, kind of like the video we saw at the last meeting. And then the other one would be if we were to have staff go to neighborhood meetings and also talk to the neighborhoods about watering trees. So that's it. So if you put all those together as a, one big marketing program, it's 65,000. Or you could pick and choose.
Gotcha.
And actually, what we're talking about with planting 700 trees is basically like a $300,000 cost, or let's say a 400-ish. I haven't done the math yet for the first year. Second year would be much lower, and then third year would be the same, and then there would be the trim costs for year 4, 5, and 6.
Right, and that's what was additional that we didn't have the numbers for at the last meeting. That's why now it's inclusive of all that.
So I think it's important for us also to, when it's presented to city council, not to present it as this is $800,000 cost over 6 years, but rather to say like that we're requesting appropriation for this amount for year 1, this amount for year 2, this amount for year 3, because it helps put it in perspective. That we're not talking about $1 million out of, let's say, today, we did have an $11 million budget surplus, so that isn't that crazy, but I still don't think we should be putting in a request for,
Maybe 1.2 million.
yeah, 1.2. Well, it depends what option we go with, right, so.
Doesn't option C also, isn't that 275 plus the 95?
Yeah, that's the watering cost.
So it
That's
is-
the watcher cost.
So it's both of those together.
Mhm.
It's 370.
For the first year.
Yeah.
Okay. I would agree with Kalad that I would like Janelle's input with this also, so I would agree that we don't want to vote, go one way or the other with this. Everyone else in agreement? Okay,
Yes.
all right. Then with that, let's move on. We're looking at time limitation. I would like to, okay, everyone, jump to item E, only to the fact that I don't think this will take much time. But, because you do have a standard,
Right.
that's what we're interested in seeing.
Yeah, so item E, I wanted to make sure that ETech,
Excuse me, I need to intervene and ask a question. Member Salmon recommended option C, but as I understand it, there's not going to be a vote on that at this point.
No, right,
Okay,
I
yeah.
said that my preference would be for option C, but that we should withhold on making recommendations until.
Very good.
Janelle sees.
Thank you.
so we'll be bringing this item back next
So we
week?
need, we're jumping through a whole number of items. I think we need to decide whether we're tabling them or what we're doing with them.
Correct.
So for item C, we're bringing this back for discussion at the next meeting?
I would hope it would be consolidated discussion and a vote. Otherwise, we'll be going through the whole thing again. Carl?
Well, what I thought that we were doing right now is, we have this data to discuss. We are going to table this till next meeting, else here for it, since these are a lot of her recommendations. And that's what I think we're doing.
Item C is a report and discuss item, which we covered. So maybe we can just add a new item next meeting for actual vote and resolution or something. To take an action on presenting a recommendation.
I would agree with that. Any other comments? Okay.
So we just table this item?
Tabled item C. because we really need Janelle's input. So
Okay.
she's been a major force on it. It's a shame she's not here. And the only reason I'm jumping over D to E is because I think that's a quick item that we can discuss. And knowing what her intention was, just to see if there was a standard, and that's what Bill was gonna, William was gonna read to us what that standard was.
Can we have a motion to table item C and move it to the next meeting?
Yes. I'll make a motion in a second.
I second.
Who seconded that?
Gary?
Gary, okay, thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
So do you need something for item D? Item D can be,
Are we tabling
Table.
item D?
I don't know.
Do I have a recommendation to do so, or?
I would like to table item D, but to the meeting after next.
Okay, is there a second?
So October? Is that-
October.
Okay.
Yes. I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So be it. Okay, item E.
item E. A question from ETAC members about how we ensure watering for new trees planted in parkways, in particular the ones that are a requirement of a land development project. Late last year, we had an opportunity to revamp most of our street standards, and the planting standard for street trees was one of them. So before you is the 2 pages of a tree planting standard that was approved this last March. And so what we did is we modified the standard to include that there is a deep root watering system, which is a Rainbird or approved equivalent. So that's under the Exhibit 1. And I think a similar note is on the Exhibit 2. And one standard is covering trees that has a tree well, the other one is a tree that's just in a parkway. So those are the two situations that we typically have in a parkway. So I just wanted to inform ETAC that we did make that change. We did hear that you wanted deep root watering for parkway trees. So this is the standard that we give to a developer when they're going to be planting. Requirement is that they plant parkway trees. There was a tree planting effort that was done by the maintenance division recently. But when we plant trees in parkways, we also have to work with the property owner in order to hook up the watering system if we're going to be providing some kind of a direct watering system. Many times, if we have a planting project, we can't get an agreement for property owners to do that.
Right.
So that's why sometimes we have parkway trees that we've planted that then we have to manually hand water. But whenever we have an opportunity to work with a land developer, we can make that requirement directly tied into the land developer. So whenever we have condominium projects or commercial construction and we have several trees planted, those trees will be directly connected to deep root watering.
Excellent. I think that was the question I had, is why not have the developer water the trees
Right.
at least for a few years? Because they're irrigating their landscape anyway. It's part of the
Right.
development agreement to water with a suitable system.
Just out of curiosity, this water connection is after the meter, so whoever is paying on that meter is paying for the water?
That's correct.
I have a question on the detail. Is there a minimum depth for the amended soil? See on those called out there. Minimum depth below the root ball?
I'd have to get back to you. Or maybe there's an opportunity to modify the standard. I don't see that.
Tom, I'm sorry, your question is on the soil condition, is that what you're talking about?
Well, I've seen some trees, because of existing roots,
Mhm.
not quite get to depth, and it affects the health of the tree, so I just want to make sure we clearly show the depth for the monthly minute soil filling there.
Hmm.
On the detailing, I was call it 2 by 8 ball diameter, but I don't see a note covering the depth.
Carl, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I could. This covers the specifics of how trees should be planted. And going from memory, the last 2 meetings, the thing that Janelle kept bringing up was what was the standard for what type of trees were planted and recommended to the developers? Because in a number of cases, when we've had developer requests come through our packets where we had to approve developer's request, it hasn't been how they're going to plant the trees or how they're going to water them, it's been what type of trees, because they typically keep coming to us with sycamore type trees, which are dying throughout the city because they're really not indicative of our climate. So while this covers the structure, the schematic of how trees should be planted and how they should be the depth and the watering, it doesn't cover what standard we have for what type of trees developers should plant. Maybe that's going to come through the next discussion when we get into E, when we have the types of trees throughout the city, but that's been a problem Janelle has brought up before.
That was supposed to be part of item D. Tree master plan and specifications update. Yeah.
But again, this is, item E says developer standards, and I thought the developer standards was going to be more specific to what type of trees developers should be planting, not what type, not how they should plant. That was just my take on this.
Okay.
I think it'd be different to every situation, every development, every street. That would be up to staff to.
There should be a guiding master plan.
They have a
for
master
each
plan
street.
for each street. And then I know we've talked about the sycamores. And we've kind of,
And again, perhaps that'll come up in October. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
fair enough.
I think at this point, at least the pre-meeting, the discussion here was to see that indeed the deep root watering was in our standard, because there was concern that it was not in the standards. By this, it shows that it is, correct? Any other questions on item E? Okay, let's go on to F, which is the reporting of data.
So we've provided a report based on a question that was asked by ETAC on a report by council ward and neighborhood association on tree inventory. So so the information is being provided, and Danelle, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I actually handed out because
Present
we
that,
inadvertently didn't get the attachments in when we emailed it to you this past Friday, but I passed it out, you'll see it's in color. And basically, this is the report that we get directly from our inventory, from the West Coast Arborist data. And it can be done by neighborhood, it can be done by council ward. I just picked a sample ward and a couple of the neighborhoods within, just because I didn't want to kill too many trees actually printing everything for you. That would have been a lot of pages. But basically, it breaks down the DVH, the height, the condition, if there's any dead removals, et cetera, in whatever area we're looking at. And then behind that is actually the tree species and how many are in that particular area that we're looking at. So that's just the standard report that we can pull that Janelle had been asking for, so that's what that shows. But I can, on request, pull that for any particular neighborhood or ward if needed.
So it'd be pretty easy to ask for Ward 6. You can just
Correct.
email that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep. I can pull that. It comes right off the system.
If I could ask just a quick question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Gary.
For instance, Ward 3,
Okay.
it's 4 pages of types of trees. Is this just like what the city inherited? Is that like page 4, you have one of 36 different types of trees, only one of that tree? Is it because that's just what?
That means that ward only has one of those
I
trees.
understand that, but
Oh.
why is there, why would there be so many different types of trees?
Yeah, they are inherited.
Yeah.
They've been there
What we
for
had.
decades and decades.
Yeah.
And now that everything's officially inventoried in GPS, we can actually tell exactly how many of each tree type, citywide or narrow it down to neighborhood or
Whatever it is,
council.
380
Yeah.
different types of trees.
A lot of trees,
Yeah, it's a
a
lot.
lot of species.
It's up to maintain, yeah.
I'm gonna ask, make a motion that we table item G.
To which meeting?
Cheap.
It's the operational plan
Oh.
to monitor trees designated in poor conditions. Because I know Janelle wanted to have some comment on that.
Do you want that in September or
I
October?
want in September.
I would think it would need to go with D. Wouldn't it make sense
Yes,
to put it with October?
it does.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to let it.
I'd make the motion to move that to October.
Do I have October?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're down to end of new business. Any public comment? I see none. Staff comment? Seeing none. Committee? Tom?
I have no comments.
Gary?
None other than a special shout out and thanks to Lori for having to come back and organize all this. After Labor Day. Thank you very much.
Glad.
Yeah, no comment.
Dan?
Again, it's thanks to staff for a lot of information, a lot of you guys work real hard. And hopefully we can get your vacancies filled so we can get you some help. I would really appreciate that because I know how hard you guys work. And it's kind of frustrating at times when it's vacancies. And, we've had a statewide emergency drought over the years and it's affecting what you guys do. And I would think some of those positions might be, other than police officers, you've already funded, you're funded in your budget. Let's go ahead and get these things expedited, get them filled so you have some help. Because I just don't like paying contractors for something where we have the money in the budget to get the work done. And you can change and divert, do what you gotta do, improvise with your people out in the field to keep these trees, because I see a lot of trees dying or stressing, and then the next step is if we don't get a ton of rain, we're gonna lose them. So it'd be nice. Anyways, thanks again.
Okay. I also want to thank staff for providing all this information and meeting with us in a pre-meeting. And with that, remind everyone, our next meeting is September 13th.
Carl, I have something
Good.
for item I.
Go ahead.
Just if you're done with comments, it sounded like you were getting ready to.
I am.
Okay.
You're right.
Just in response to the public comment around transportation plans around schools, I know that's an item I brought up last year, and so I would love to have an item at a future meeting where we talk about what sort of treatments are done around schools. There are 2 schools in Henninger Park, the Henninger Park Elementary and Santa Ana High School, where I see near misses every day. So I think it might be a little short notice to get an item for the next meeting. So maybe for October we can add an item to discuss school zone treatments for transportation.
School zone.
Well,
treat-
sorry, for traffic measure or calming measures in school zones.
All the schools in Santa Ana?
Let's focus on the one that was brought up. I forget what it was.
Windsor Park.
Winter Park
Yeah.
and also Henninger Park.
Any other comments? With that, we're adjourned.